Good afternoon. My name's Harry. This video we're going to talk about being bullied, and I was just bullied actually on the way here. It's so funny. I consider myself to be a pretty confident man at this stage in my life. I've run several businesses, and I'm still running a business where I'm talking to mature adults all the time, and really I'm a pretty confident guy. But I wasn't always that way, growing up in school. I was sort of shy, and I was different because I didn't really like sports in school. And so a lot of people teased me, and some people bullied me. So I developed a response to bullying, which was to avoid my bullies at all cost. And then in two cases, just exploding in anger, uncontrollable anger, and I'm managing to beat up my two bullies. And it's not that I wanted to beat them up, but I felt like a cornered animal, and so I just flailed. I wasn't ever trained in any kind of fighting. I just became a swinging danger. So, getting back to my story today, we have a family gathering going on at my house right now. My partner, she has a sister who rents the property across from us every summer. It's a B&B. And her sister brings her two sons and 5 grandchildren. So anyway, so we're partying with these people. And today, a group of the sisters went out for a walk with 2 grandchildren on bicycles, our grandchildren. And I said, great, I'm going to go for a bike ride, get my exercise today. And so off I went, and I'm riding along the trails in Rath River Park there. And I recognized the lady from the night before, partying from the night before, little grandma. Anyway, so Carol's sister is big grandma, and one of the wives of one of her sons is their mother. Her mother is quite tiny. And last night we got into a pretty good conversation because we're both avid cyclists. So getting back to today, I'm going through Rath River Park, and who do I encounter but little grandma riding her bike and her grandson, Oscar. And, I really liked her last night, so I thought, well, hey, do you want a little tour? So I offered to take them for a little tour. And on part of my usual routine ride, I go through a section of forest with a sign that says, no bicycles. It's a beautiful, quiet trail. There's seldom any people on it. When I do encounter people, they're usually friendly. I have encountered the park warden on 3 occasions, and it's always been the same lady. The first time she told me I couldn't ride there and turned me around. The second time I was there, she says, I realize I can't stop you. And we sort of became friends, but I also explained to her that I didn't understand why they were blocking this beautiful, quiet, almost unused trail from cyclists. When I do encounter people in there, they're 99% of the time they're friendly, but I have had the odd person who confronts me. And that happened today. So this little grandma, and her grandson Oscar, and I explained to her all about it not being sanctioned by the park, but she seems like a feisty lady, and she said, well, what the heck, if you say it's okay. And in we went, and we're coming along, and this older man, he says, you can't ride in these trails. Oh, I said, I acted dumb, and I said, oh, really? I didn't see the sign. Yeah, he said, there's a sign at the entrance there. And I said, okay, I'll take note of that, but we're just going to carry on through for now. And he says, no, you turn around now. And he started directing me like he was a traffic cop. And I calmly looked at him, and I said, no, we're going to carry on through. And I started cycling away. And then he yells out after me, he says, is that you setting a standard for your kid? I said, not my kid. And then he goes, grandchild? I said, not my grandchild. And then he said, well, and I just finished telling the lady, that I never had any issues on that trail. I do get the odd person confronting me, but once I get going, like, here's a typical conversation. You're not allowed to ride the bikes on these trails. And I'll say, yeah, I know. And they say, well, why are you doing it? I said, because I'm not hurting anybody, and I'm a steward of the trails. I clean up the debris in the wintertime, the windfall. And she said, yeah, but it's not allowed. And I said, I know, but I don't care. And if it really escalates, I might ask that person, I'll say, look, I'm out here enjoying this trail, this beautiful solitary trail, just the same as you are. Now, did it ruin your day that I was on a bike? I know people are so dumb. Anyway, so that's one story of being bullied. I've got another one. So a few weeks ago, I was doing some shopping in Nanaimo, which is nearby to my town. And I have a friend that I called up. I wanted to go and have lunch with them. So we agreed to meet at Black Bear Pub in Nanaimo. And I pull into the parking lot. Now, it was a pretty hot day. And so I was, of course, looking for a shady spot to park. And luckily, there was one directly in front of me. There was a fence and some tree cover there. And so I pulled into the parking spot. Anyways, as I'm pulling up, there's a guy outside smoking a cigarette. And standing next to his motorcycle. He had a Honda Goldwing tricycle. Anyway, so he's got his Goldwing tricycle parked right next to me, but there's still a valid parking spot for me there. And he asked me to roll down my window. So I rolled down my window and I said, "What?" And he goes, "How am I going to get out of here?" I said, "Well, that thing has reverse gear, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, so back and fill and you can get out." And he says, "Yeah, I'd have to do it like 15 times. Of course, he was totally exaggerating, but he was also starting to look a little threatening to me. And, one of the things I've been working on in my adulthood is anger control, de-escalation if I can. I don't have a good record, I'll tell you right now, but that's for another video. And so not wanting to have a confrontation with this slightly threatening fellow, I said, "Oh, okay." And as I'm backing out, I said, "You're a selfish asshole." And anyway, so then I'm looking for another spot. There was no other shady spots. And I kept thinking, why did I just let myself get manipulated like that? I can stand up for myself. I don't understand why I lapsed into a kind of a childhood response to bullies, which is exactly what I did. Anyway, so then I thought, well, I'm going to head back to that spot before someone else takes it. So I pulled right back up into the shady spot. I got out of my car. My heart was beating, but I was trying to be calm. And the guy standing there looking at me. And I said, "I'm going to park here, and you can back and fill however many times you need to get your motorcycle out." And he just looked at me and shrugged. I mean, I think he had already had his satisfaction at seeing me buckle and leave. But when I came back, he realized that it was pointless to confront me on such a stupid thing. And I went in, and then we had lunch. I had lunch with my friend. So it was all good, and I told him the story. But the point of all this is that I'm a 67-year-old man. I've owned businesses. I'm confident in my relationship. I can stand up for myself. I usually try to avoid situations where I have to stand up for myself. But anyway, there's a couple of little bullying stories for you. 67 years old and bullied.